Hey, Josh Thomas, Academy Mortgage. How are you? Hey, I just want to start off with a big you're welcome. I was just making this video to share something important with you and looked up and saw that it was like 5 minutes long and thought, you know what? People's time is more important. I can do this in a shorter time span, so you're welcome. Anyway, I wanted to just show you something real quick. And in continuing with the there's three main things that I kind of am harping on over and over and over because they're misunderstood grossly in the market, and I love it when people understand and have all the facts. Number one, are we in a housing bubble? No, and I'm going to talk a little bit. In fact, I'm going to show you a chart today which helps support why I don't agree with the housing bubble. Number two, down payments. We just don't need as much of a down payment as people think. In fact, a lot of times, even in today's market right now this summer, I'm still helping people get into homes for as little as 500 bucks or less. And I have to give you all the details for that one, but it's a possibility. It just depends on where you're at. And then three is credit scores and what kind of credit scores we require. So anyway, in an effort of or an interest of your time, I'm going to jump into this article that I read over the weekend that kind of got me going here. So anyway, millennials might be the only thing preventing another mortgage crisis. So this is looking like it's going to be a phenomenal article. I'm so excited to read it. The Great Recession was an enormous disaster. Nobody wants a repeat of it, and yet we're perched on precisely that same precipice. Really? How is that? That's what I'm wondering. Because for some reason, the pieces of the crisis are being allowed to reform themselves. The only piece of the crisis that I can see has realigned itself is that values are increasing again. Other than that, I don't quite see the same thing. But anyway, let's keep going. To understand the problem, you have to know what happened. Ream after ream of subprime mortgage was issued thanks to low federal funds rate. Essentially, banks didn't have to charge each. That's kind of part of the truth, but there's a lot more to it than that. Essentially, banks didn't have to charge each other to lend each other money, and then many people had adjustable rates. And then he makes the conclusion that if the feds raise their rates, that their adjustable rates will go up, and that is simply not the case. Um, it's just not true. What ended up happening in this whole period is that people had two parts to their mortgage. They had, if you have a 30-year fixed rate or something, it's just you just got your rate. That's it. There's nothing to it. But if you have an adjustable rate, you have your margin and you have your index. The margin plus the index equals the rate. And the problem with these subprime mortgages in many, many cases is that the margin plus the index exceeded the start rate. In fact, the margin in most cases exceeded anybody's start rate. I remember seeing a couple loans where the margin was 8%. To put this in context, normal mortgages, the margin is maybe 2 to 2.5%. That's a normal margin for a normal adjustable rate. And in today's low rate environment, you add those together and you're in the 3% range somewhere. But in that era, if you have an 8% margin, it doesn't matter what index you add that to, your rate's going to be really, really high. And that was the problem, is these subprime mortgages were set up in a way that there was nowhere to go but up. And so what happened was not that the feds raised their rates. They were, but that's something completely separate. It's that these margins started coming due, or excuse me, the 2 to 3 year teaser time expired, and the new rate adjusted, and now these people are sitting at 7, 8, 9, 10, 12%. It just depends on their mortgage. So the rest of this article, as you can imagine, is whatever negative kind of stuff, and you're welcome to read it. I'll include it in the notes. But the reason I wanted to highlight that is because I want people to be in the know. I want them to truly understand what caused the problem. And I wanted to share this with you because anybody can say the housing bubble doesn't exist. Let me help you see why. So let me make sure that you can see what you're looking at. Baby boomers, right? 76 million baby boomers. Generation Xers, 55 million. And so if you cut this part of the graph out and you just look at this, then that's why the baby boomer generation looks so huge. The Generation X generation was much smaller than the boomers, right? But then the millennials start coming, and the post-millennials, the echo boomers, right? And so you can see that this is 3 million births a year, right? So 3 million. Boomers got all the way up over 4 million, but then the millennials came back down to just over 3 million births a year. but you can see that the Gen X, but the millennials, as you can see, touched back up and over 4 million births a year. Okay, so that's part one of this. And so if you go back to 2006, 33-year-old people, all right, that's the average age of a first-time home buyer. There just weren't that many. I mean, there were tons, but in comparison to times in the past, there just wasn't. And yet, here's the interesting thing. I'll show you in another video, a different time, is the demand for housing was the highest it's ever been right there as percentage of the population. And yet right here, you can see the number of births, what, another 500,000 births a year or something like that is going on. And yet now these people, so there's an extra 500,000 people a year, being born and stuff like that, that are now turning 33, I guess is the point. And so now these guys, this is the first time home buyer market right now, is these two little lines right here. So if you want to understand why there's not a housing bubble going on, it's because this is what's driving prices up. Last time there wasn't the demand for it. There was just a lot of investing going on. Now this is the actual home buyer out there buying the house. Anyway, interested time, I'm going to cut it short, but I just wanted to kind of show you that chart. Hopefully that's something that you find valuable. I'm happy to give you a copy of this chart. As of right now, I just have it as an email attachment as a file. But let me know if you're interested. I'll give you a copy of it. We'll catch you later. Have a great day. Thanks for taking your time to spend with us.